Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages podcast. I am your host, Kim Wanup. Well, I got a monster of an episode here for you. I'm the dork, I know. I have award-winning production designer Tamara Deverell to talk about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. It's so good. It's streaming on Netflix, but please see it in the theater. It's so good. It's 119 sets across Canada and the UK. Talk about a 135-foot Arctic ship that they built on a gimbal in a studio parking lot. And yes, I was getting Dr. Odyssey flashbacks when we talked about that. The lab, the symmetry, the locations. There's just a plethora of things. Tiles, body parts. We talk about it all. So that's coming up in a minute. I do want to say thank you again to everyone who is listening, subscribing, and commenting. It means a lot to me. And quick story, when I started this, there used to be this website where you could go and check how you're doing on the charts, Chartable, and it went under. I don't know, when people weren't paying or whatever. I didn't pay, but it went under, and then I forgot to look. The highest I've ever ranked in the US is number 16 in film interviews, and that I've always kind of hung on to that. It goes up and down every day because the highest is the first day of release, and then it dwindles down, and then there's a spike on the weekend. Like, I know how it goes. So I found another website, and I was pleasantly surprised that the Decorating Pages podcast is top 10 in film interviews in Canada, top 20 in Australia and United Kingdom, and top 50 average. These are averages in for film interviews for podcasts, and I get really happy about that. And I'm so happy that people are listening, because that means they are paying attention to our craft, and that is really the purpose of this, and to pay attention to our hard work and our creations. And so I'm very proud of that. So thank you again, everyone. And that's what I'm telling you. Like, subscribe, join, whatever it is on your platform, and YouTube. It really helps me out. So thank you so much. Let's get into a couple things. I wanted to let everyone know that IndieWire is announcing their first inaugural craft roundtable series that they'll be running from November to December. So they're, instead of doing just actors and directors and writers, they're now doing crafts, which is fantastic. I think it was cinematographers and production designers and editors. So for the production design roundtable, they're welcoming Cara Bauer of Hedda, who will also be on this podcast, Sam Bader for The Testament of Anne Lee, Alexander Schaller for Train Dreams, who is coming up here also, Scott Chambliss from Kiss of the Spider-Woman, who you can hear in a previous episode, and Dylan Cole and Ben Proctor for Avatar, Fire and Ash. So that sounds like an amazing roundtable. Again, it will be, I think it's just on their website or probably their YouTube channel that you can check that out. Because awards season is revving up, and we are deep into it here. Who's we? I'm deep into it over here. Just loving doing all of these interviews and seeing all these great films and series that are being released. And what Wanup is watching is a good one this week. Death by Lightning. It's on Netflix. I was like, oh, that looks interesting. It's great. I finished it in 2 nights. I think it's only like 5 episodes. 4. It's only 4 episodes. It could have been a movie, but I'm glad that it's episodes, because then I get a little bit more. But it says Stranger Than Fiction. True. Stranger Than Fiction, true story of the 20th U.S. President James Garfield and his admirer, Charles Gautier, who assassinated him. And I'm going to be honest, knew nothing about this story, knew that he was killed, but Matthew McFadden, who is from Succession, is fantastic. Michael Shannon, another actor I could watch read The Phone Book. I love everything he does. Betty Galpin is great. Shay Winningham is great. Bradley Whitford is in it. And then you get Nick Offerman, who plays the vice president, Chester Arthur, and he's fantastic. I mean, I love me some Nick. So, I said Nick. Yeah. So, it's really good. It's on Netflix. Again, it's only 4 episodes. You're going to learn history. These sets are fantastic. It's, it's like, what is it? 1880s White House. Oh my God, I'm such a dork. I loved it. Gemma Jackson, production designer, and set decorator Hannah Gawthorpe. Woof. The drapery in the White House and how the simplicity of just walking right up to the White House before, like there was a little park in front. Who knew? I don't know. No security, obviously. It's great. It's a great story and it's quick. And again, the acting I thought was stellar. They do the conventions. It's beautiful. I really love the sets and yeah, quick watch. I'm not gonna get into anything else that I'm watching because I got to get into this interview. How about that? Should we do that? I did a lot of research for this interview because this has become, I think, my favorite film of the season of this year. And I usually don't do a lot of research because I don't want to be influenced by other people's questions or whatever. And but there is a making of Behind the Monster, I think it's called, on Netflix. It's 45 minutes long about the creatives who made Frankenstein, and it's fantastic. It's the production designer, the cinematographer, it's costumes, it's creature work, it's models. They're showing everything, special effects. It's really good behind the scenes and showing you how all of these departments are working together to make this magnificent film. I watched it twice, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. There are some stats about this film that I think are crazy. 3 days shooting in an ice field in northern Ontario, 23 locations in Canada, 32 UK locations, 9 long-time Del Toro collaborations, meaning 9 of the people he's worked with for a while, 119 sets, 24 built sets, 3,178 labor days to build the ship. What? 2,830 labor days to build the lab. 1,200 labor days to build the tower exterior, 6 months to build the ship, 15 models, I think she says 15 or 13 models, 120 construction crew in Canada, and 24 set decorating crew in Canada. That seems light. That one, I don't know if that's real. 1,252 backroom costumes. I mean, huge film going on here. And every detail is meticulously not only made precisely and beautifully, but everything is working together seamlessly in this film. So I am joined by production designer Tamara Deverell to break down this film. And what we're going to talk about is 135-foot ship locked into ice, built on a gimbal in a Toronto parking lot. The tower lab with a giant Medusa watching over the experiments. Victor's crooked Edinburgh apartment that the walls are leaning into his madness. The vaulted tiled crypt where the creature is kept, slowly being reclaimed by moss and finding the beauty in rot and rust. She talks about her scouting. She talks about juggling over 100 sets and keeping it all in tune with the script and Guillermo's vision. Tamara is a Emmy-winning production designer for her work in Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosity, which I do believe is also Netflix. She's been designing for Guillermo since, I think it was 1990s, was Mimic, but they also collaborated on Nightmare Alley. She's done Star Trek Discovery, The Strain, Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, and she's very influential to me. I think she's just a wonderful production designer. And her collaboration with set decorator Shane View, who has been on this podcast twice, once for Dune and once about Nightmare Alley. I just think they have created a monster, a beautiful monster here in this film. So there you go. I hope you enjoy.
In LA.
Yes.
We did some in New York and some in London. So.
In LA.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm glad you were there.
Yeah, it's so.
I can't remember. They're all a whirlwind. I can't
I'm
remember.
sure.
Some I tried to answer things differently because you get tired of the same questions, but some were great. I think that was one of the really good ones, as I recall.
Well, I mean, Guillermo was so passionate about not using CGI and like, I think that really helps the crowd in LA because all we want to hear is like
Oh
keep
yeah,
work in the US and don't take away our, the job of the building and everything. So
right.
I feel like that was really heartfelt and very
Yeah,
felt in the room of like, oh, they built everything, thank God.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were visual effects,
Yeah.
but we all know what those are when the ship gets pushed out to sea. It was actually getting pushed out to the Toronto Harbor, but I think our visual effects team was so great about just embracing the realness of it that
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it was great panel. I was wondering when you have first of all, I mean to hear like, oh, this is coming up, and you think like, oh my God, Frankenstein. Like
Mhm.
it's an iconic character in film and literary history. Do you think to yourself, like, I hope we do this completely different, or I hope we stick to this, or like, what is your beginning concepts when you start reading?
Well, I knew that Guillermo had wanted to do Frankenstein for like his entire life, basically. And so I wasn't surprised when he asked me, which was actually when we were at the premiere of Nightmare Alley in New York at a party, and
Oh,
he like leaned over and said, "Frankenstein, Tamara, Frankenstein." I'm like, and this is when I was doing Cabinet of Curiosities, and I was so exhausted. I never wanted to work again, and but who could resist? So, so that was like a year or two before we really started, and I was like, Frankenstein. I mean, I had read the novel when I was a kid and it was entrancing. And I'd seen a lot of the Frankenstein's movies. And by that, I mean like Young Frankenstein
yeah.
too and Rocky Horror Picture Show, like the telling of the tale in so many different ways. And obviously Guillermo grew up with the, 1930s versions and the 1960s versions. So like we did look at them and I did want to sort of nod to them. Like the 1930s Frankenstein the set was fantastic when
Yeah.
you look at
Yeah.
like given when and where they were doing it. I was actually quite astounded by the height and
Yeah. It's a
the look
big
of the
set.
set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean we tried to imbue some of that in there, but really with Guillermo you're just free to do your own thing under his gaze, like he's got a very particular vision. So there's certain things when I started Frankenstein that he'd already had in his, breast pocket. The Medusa, the big
The big-
circular window and the Medusa in the lab. Like he knew he wanted that. He hadn't quite decided that the lab was going to be an abandoned water tower. He was still sort of formulating that when I started because we were still, are we going to build this? Are we going to find something? Where is it exactly? Where are we shooting this film? So like the first 2 months of when I first started was just looking at locations, even
Yeah.
though there was so much we built, and we did look for a ship, but like there was
Yeah.
no ship. There was no, that just didn't exist, even as a film set. Um, so yeah.
I'm gonna get to the ship, but since you brought up the Medusa, I oh, here's my favorite set. Hold on, let me get to the Medusa. So when or maybe I passed it. I'm did I miss with the significance of the Medusa? Is
Well, the
it
Medusa, I mean, I think from Guillermo's point of view, the Medusa is sort of a monster and a misunderstood monster.
mm,
So there was the whole Perseus Medusa story, and that she's turned to stone, uh, which sort of points to a lack of humanity, which speaks to Victor Frankenstein's character. So, I mean, And I think it's take it, he kind of puts it out there, but it's sort of take it for what you can make of it.
Mm,
It also, the Medusa also symbolized, and I didn't know this when I started, but it was a water tower. So it was used in public buildings as a symbol for water for some reason. I looked that up and I can't remember the details, but there was some kind of relevance given we were trying to build this abandoned public building that was a water tower that was never opened, and
right.
it just got covered in moss and leaves, and trees were growing in it
Wow.
when we first see the lab. So yeah, there's a significance. And I think also for Guillermo, it's he loves the power of symbols,
Mm,
and the symbol of the snake, and the symbol of the symbols in Greek mythology of in humanity, and fighting the internal fight between Perseus and Medusa. Like you can dive deep into this stuff, really.
it's the choice though of yours to make it this huge relief on the back of the wall and then have paintings surrounding it is such a beautiful backdrop. And when it's dark and it's still like tiny like lit and everything and the mouth open and everything. So I'm sure there was a lot of discussion of like it's gonna be it's gonna be a big thing in the if we're gonna go for it.
That was one thing Guillermo really, honestly, there's a lot of discussion about other things, but that was something he really had in his head. And it just,
Mm,
it started smaller and it got bigger, like the window that's sort of across from it, the big
mm,
round window that's also the other focal point of the lab.
yeah.
And it just it just seemed to grow and expand. And then I think if we for a while we had talked about just doing it as mosaic, because what we have around it are sort of mosaics of Perseus fighting Medusa on below it, they're so aged you can barely make it out, but that's what's there. And originally we were talking about doing the whole thing as tile or mosaic or painting or fresco. And I think clearly that it needed that dimensionality
Yeah.
of being a sculpted piece, and the way it could light, but that it was also monochromatic. Because one thing I think that worked with it is it didn't take over from the actors in front of it, and
No.
it wasn't as splashy as a full mosaic would have been. So it could recede a bit, but it also could capture the light and the mood,
Yeah.
the
It,
monster mood.
yeah, yeah. The lab is so spectacular, and I should say there is a fantastic behind the scenes on Netflix. It's like 45 minutes long that I watched, I think, twice because it goes through everyone for you and costumes and the
Yeah.
prosthetics and Guillermo. It's a fantastic deep dive into what makes the movie the whole. And I really loved it and learned a lot in there too. So I'm definitely telling people to check that out because it's great to see the behind the scenes of that in
hmm
action. Um, I love the part when you're like, and he's like, oh, I want the body parts. How many? Bring them all. Bring all the body parts. Like, just
We
bring
did.
them
We
all.
literally used every single body part. We had class A body parts, the really good ones, and then B and then C that were in the deep
Yeah,
background,
yeah.
and then mannequins that were like could barely see.
That's
That was so much fun.
it's a good humor relief in the film. I think like there's a
Yeah.
little break to the seriousness,
Yeah.
the dramedy of it. Um,
hmm
in creating these towers, which I know I forget the name of they're like Edison
Battery towers.
pattern towers. Yeah. What how intricate is it? Because lighting and then
Yeah.
placement and then moving them for camera, things like that, and making them practical and everything. I mean, it's a big design there.
Yeah. Yeah. They were about 15 feet tall and 4.5 feet across.
Uh-huh.
And we that out of all the things that we built, that required the most sort of R&R. Like we had to find a way to make it look like big thick glass on the outside, the structure, like period glass that would go from green then to red. So we had to find a way to get lighting in there and yet make it feel like it was filled with liquid, because that was the idea. And I know VFX may have helped in some instances, but not really. And we had to have steam in there, and we had to working dials and knobs that had to have steam and drips. So like the whole thing between special effects and lighting and the art department building it and the set dressers who did all the amazing tubes and things that go around it with the dials. It was a real group effort, to say the least. So we spent months on that. We did a frame and they had to wheel because they were in the way
Right.
of the camera.
Right.
So they were all on big casters that were sort of hidden, and then you could literally just push them around in the lab space to get them out of the way. You couldn't get them out very easily, but you could push them around. So
And
that was
then,
months. Like we started those very early on in terms of just playing with, building a substructure and then dressing it up and
you
yeah.
made them in model form because you the
Yeah, that was in Shepperton. That was Magic Camera. Jose Granell, who's a miniature artist with his group of artists, they replicated that. The whole lab for the explosion scene had to be built as I don't know, I think it was 1 to 20. It was big. You could kind of like the batteries were, a couple feet high.
Yeah,
Um,
they show it in that documentary or the
yeah.
behind the scenes. It's great because too, I mean, you also, oh my God, you need to be a part of that for your designs and in showing the details of the tower. Let me get to it.
Yeah. Yeah, like like they were given our blueprints, so they could replicate everything, just take our blueprints and do it downsized. But what they actually had to come, and the timing was right. So we filmed the miniatures at the very end, or maxatures as I call them.
Mhm.
Um, and the timing was right, so they were able to come. And when Jose came, he came with his some of his scenic artists to look at our scenic work because they had to match that as well. Because we're dealing with layers of scenic paint and
Yeah,
aging and patinas and moss and leaves, and all of that had to be added as well by
I,
them.
I I love all the aging inside the building, outside of the building. I mean, your paint department is phenomenal on this.
Yeah, they are.
And
Kudos to them for sure.
oh my gosh, from the outside and like you're saying, like the moss and the greens department with the growth all through, it's
Hmm.
it's such it gives it such uh like a death sort of like it's dying like this
Hmm.
the places are dying, but they're so beautifully like aged. I just love it. Um,
Yeah, for me, it was like always this feeling that nature will just take over.
yeah.
We're the miserable species that's going to just die off, and nature will come back. Because we always had this moss growing, and I think that was very in tune with the whole idea of Victor Frankenstein's story.
You built the tower base, and how tall did you go up? I have your drawing on the screen, but I can't see. Is it 30,
Uh, oh, like 30 something feet, I think.
30
It
feet?
was huge. It was huge. I mean, the whole tower itself would have been 450 feet high or something like that. So it's really like scaled down from that. I should look it up. I don't remember, but I think it was about 35 feet. I mean, we had to use lifts to get everywhere on that.
Wow. Oh, that's great. I mean, the and also the scale. I mean, you're saying it's so big, but the scale of those two
The
um
scrolls,
roles in the front of the building, how did you come upon that as putting them in the
you
design?
know, well, that's a good question. We were actually scouting for city streets in and it's actually called New Edinburgh, but it's very old. So it's like of the 1800s. And we came upon a church called St. Stephen's Church, and it had these big scrolls with these stairs in the front of it, much smaller than what we built. But Guillermo just loved them, and I was like, I couldn't understand. He was just like, "Stop the car!" We were driving around the street, looking at streets in the van. He's like, "Stop the car!" And I said, Guillermo, we don't have a scene outside a church like this. And he was like, I love these, like photograph them, photograph them. And so I, photographed them with Guy Davis, our hero concept illustrator, was with artists with us, and I took a bazillion photos, and we basically replicated them. Like we tried to do something different, but he's like, no, I just love them just the way they are. So we kind of upscaled them, but replicated them from the church. We did a lot of that. We took a lot of things from our initial scout through Scotland. The Wallace Tower was a big influencer for us
A
for
rock.
the water tower, which is this kind of famous tower in Scotland.
I
Yeah.
saw that in some of the research of that tower and like, oh my God, I want to
Hmm.
go there. Like, how much scouting did you do? Like, so you shot in Canada and in London? Was that it? I'm sorry.
And well, we shot mostly we shot in Canada. All the studio stuff was in Toronto. The North Arctic scenes were at Lake Nipissing, which is north of Toronto, as far north as we could get. With like 4 hours north of Toronto, there's a big lake that's frozen, and it looks like the Arctic.
Mm,
Unfortunately for us, it was kind of a warm year, and it was a bit sloshy, but it still worked.
of
So all
course.
those scenes where the creature's standing, and VFX would postage stamp in the ship in the distance, but a lot of those scenes with the dog sled and stuff are shot on that frozen
Wow.
lake, which really looks like the Arctic. I mean, you can't have trees up there. There were a few trees, but they're really like on the edges of the frame that VFX had to erase. And then we shot like the mill house, which we built, the blind man's house. We built that
Yeah.
outside of Toronto. And then all the big locations were mostly Scotland and a couple of places in the UK, Burghley House and Wilton House. But we decided in photos to go to the UK primarily for our locations. And part of the story takes place in Edinburgh. Of course, Mary Shelley is from there, and like it just felt so right to us. But I looked in Switzerland and Croatia, the Czech Republic, Hungary. I was looking everywhere, like
Right.
all around the world for places to shoot. And it just made logistic sense and look sense, more importantly, the look of the film to do it in Scotland.
Yeah.
So we went, I went with Guillermo in April and went back again in August. And then we all went back again with this DP in November, the year before we started filming.
So
We did about 3 or 4.
your prep from starting concept to shooting was about 2 years?
No, it would be about a year.
Oh, a year.
I think I have to look at my calendar. I know I started like in February of 2023 and we started shooting in 2024.
Mm. It's just, I mean, the projects get so big that it's like it's never enough time. And I mean, you're talking about scouting over months. It's like
Yeah, well, you really have to,
time consuming.
you
Yeah.
want to find the best and like it takes a lot of, long time just going through all the photos that I was being sent by numerous location scouts and cities that had location departments,
Yeah.
it was a huge job.
There is I didn't come up with this. I took it from a from an article, but 23 locations in Canada, 32 UK set locations, 119 sets.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing. It's like
yeah, it's a lot.
it's almost like every other page has a new set, really. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
it's like
yeah. Some of them didn't make the final cut too.
oh,
So
that's so
yeah,
sad.
yeah.
I wanted to ask, my favorite set is Victor's apartment.
It's mine too.
And I should say I'm so thankful that on your website you have your drawings and sketches and everything, which I dork out on all the time. So I'm glad that you have them on there.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
just put those on the other day.
well, I took them to look at. So
Okay. Okay.
so in the concept of his and designing this room, you gave it a little arc here. It's not a straightforward, and you made them have like an entrance to come in.
Hmm.
Is that significant to anything, or is this like, you know,
No, it was just a
more of
way to I think it was more just a way to get them in the space and then reveal the space because it was nice to kind of come in. And originally we had a scene in the hallway, which was actually in Edinburgh that I was matching to kind of bring them up at this windy, very cool space set of stairs. But really, the film was too long, and so we kind of cut out because it was just beautiful, but it wasn't really needed for the film. Um, I mean, some sets you like to come bang, like the library, which was the location, but we did a lot of work
oh
on the
yeah.
desk. It's all about that symmetry. But Victor's apartment was really about the nooks and crannies of old Edinburgh, where we shot outside and the crookedness. So it made sense to me to kind of have this crooked way in. I mean, we really bent the walls in that thing. It was
Yeah.
like drove the carpenters crazy because they want to build everything straight and plumb. And I was like, no, lean it more, lean it, lean it. It doesn't actually, to me, show as much as we did it, but you feel it. I think the audience feels it.
I do. I think you feel it too, that there's something a little off in here and he's made
Mhm.
it into his, this is probably somebody's nice house and he's made it into his like mad scientist sort of lair.
Yeah.
And
And layers and layers of dressing that
oh,
Shane View, our decorator, put in. That we got that stuff from like a lot of it came from England, the old stuff. And we were also looking a lot at Bernie Wrightson, who's a graphic illustrator, who did a lot of Frankenstein drawings. You should check him out because he's
oh,
actually like he was a big major inspiration for us. And he's not around anymore, but we used his Guillermo owns some of his Frankenstein drawings, and we really tried to copy all these tubes and lab equipment and these hanging things that he has in his illustrations.
oh, that's great. And I mean, even just looking at the photo when doing this, there's like an alligator like just hanging up and like experiments going on that you're like, this guy is infatuated with this work and it
Hmm.
sees nothing else. But so crazy that he never thought beyond what it would really be like. I think that's the biggest thing for me in this of like he never thought about what it would be like after he did it. Like I
Yeah,
don't know, like but
typical
um
guy. Just do it. I'm gonna
yeah,
do it, and then like no
I
thought to
love
the end result.
Shane. I've interviewed him twice before for Nightmare Alley.
Oh
And
yeah,
he's so talented and yeah, the
yeah.
layering in this, I just was like I paused it when because now it's on Netflix. So I paused it and was looking around too
Right.
because there's just so many details in here that you get to see. And when that body is on the table, I mean that
Yeah.
like so crazy. So half of the roof here is lit, is light.
Yeah, skylights. Yeah.
And there's great talk with the DP also about, shafts of light and using the
Hmm.
natural light. In designing all of the sets, how did that conversation go as to like what his needs
Yeah.
were?
I mean, that particular set for Dan Lauschten, our cinematographer, was a real challenge. And we had an actual backing of Edinburgh that we had taken from the rooftops. Um, and he at first he was like, I don't need a backing, and then he was like, yeah, give me the backing. So it was really the windows were so huge in a studio setting. It's really hard to light them. But he had time to with his crew to really figure it out. And it wasn't ideal, but we did sort of come up with the curtaining that
Yeah,
really helped him.
diffuse.
Um, and I think we did have to get vi visual effects to help us a little bit to take erase some of the studio that you see through because they were just so big. You can't, unless we had a studio that was 200 feet tall, you can't like,
Yeah,
or built it outside, you can't like actually not see the lighting equipment and lighting it for, daylight.
yeah.
It was quite something. What's
Well,
that? What's that movie and the musical, The Demon Barber of Fleet
oh,
Street with Johnny Depp?
yeah, the
Uh,
Sweetie Todd. Sweeney
Sweeney
Todd?
Todd. I
Yeah,
was really I remember seeing Sweeney Todd in that set with the big
the big pitch.
I was so inspired by that amazing Italian designer whose name I forget, but
Dante,
I
is
was
it
really
Dante Ferretti? No,
yeah, I think
no.
so. It's Dante Furry.
Yeah,
Check
yeah.
that, but I think it is. And I just love that. I love that wall of glass. So I really wanted to play with that and Dan rose to the occasion because it was a challenge to light for sure.
Well, and there's like, somewhat of a romantic scene in there and it's still soft and beautiful too. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautifully done. Um, I talk about the ship because the ship is phenomenal. I mean, you built a ship in Canada in a parking lot. Is that what it's a?
Yeah. We,
Now,
we
I,
started.
here's something crazy. I just did Dr. Odyssey. We built our ship in a parking lot in the middle of Simi Valley. So I'm
Right.
with you.
There you go.
It
We,
happened.
we wanted to shoot it in a studio, And there just wasn't a studio big enough. Like when
Yeah.
you put together, like, because we also built the ice field around it, that was a big expanse. So the ship was like 135 feet from, bow to stern, and maybe 30, 35 feet wide at its widest. But around it, there was 200 feet of square of ice field that we built that then VFX beautifully extended, but it
Right.
was a lot. And then we had all this equipment around it. So we were going to do it in a field like we did on Nightmare Alley. We built the carnival in a field. That same field that we used for the carnival, by the way, is where we put the base of the tower.
Oh my God. Oh,
And the
great.
frozen battlefield where he's collecting the body parts at the
Oh,
beginning.
that's great. I
Those
mean,
are both there. Just because we knew the space and we knew they had good warm toilets and a nice place to have for the crew to have lunch, and it worked. It worked. It was
that,
like coming home.
yeah,
Um,
you knew.
but
You knew where to go.
and so we thought about building the ship out there as well. And then it was just like, then we have to go all the way there, and then we started eyeing our parking lot right in front of the studios, and we were like, can it fit? And we had to draw the whole thing up 3D just to make it fit with all the cranes. Because, like, Dan had cranes and special effects had cranes, and for rain towers and snow towers and lighting had, grips and electrics, and stunts had cranes for all these gags with the guys getting thrown off the ship. So yeah, it was a real challenge to do that. Brant Gordon, my supervising art director, just
Oh,
is the ace at putting all these people together and like letting me focus on the look of it, which was not so challenging. I was actually always wanted to build a ship. So
oh,
for me, I was like, okay, Arctic exploration ship. What can I do on this? And I was so happy we connected with Matthew Betts, who's this he's an Arctic archaeologist, this guy in Ottawa, but he also is a model builder.
oh,
Like that's his pastime, and he's written a book about modeling up an Arctic exploration ship called the Terror. So there's the
oh.
Terror and the Erebus, which are actually like, and they made a TV show from
I
it.
saw that, and
Yeah,
when I started watching this, I leaned over to my husband. I'm like, "It's the terror." You said that.
definitely. It's definitely what I'm
Yeah.
pulling from the same source material, which is the actual Terror and the
Yeah.
actual Erebus. And one of the first things I did was I went to the Maritime Museum in Nova Scotia, where I now live, and met with the curator there and talked about the Franklin, because they have a huge display of the Franklin expedition. But things I found out from this Matthew Betts character, who also worked on the Terror, by the way, he also was an advisor on the Terror, was like iron plating. So apparently they would take these old whalers and they would transform them into Arctic exploration vessels, and they did iron plating on the hull, which to me was
Oh,
very Frankenstein-like. So I loved that. So we did iron plating that were got all rusted, and it kind of had this patchwork feel, echoing,
oh yeah, you can
Frankenstein
see it
patchwork
down here,
creature.
right? You can
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
So I love doing that. And then we had to devise a way to make icicles. Like we had to build the icicles, and the icebergs were like these huge. There's a Caspar David Freilich, who's a painter of the period of like the 1880s, maybe, who has a painting of icebergs that we actually copied. Guillermo pulled out this painting and said, "I love these icebergs. You have to
I
make these."
love
And
these icebergs.
we really religiously copied them. Um, anyway, so yeah, the ship was, and, the ship was very rudimentary until we got to the inside. Like it was very basic. It was like it had a mast, it had the skylights, it had I can't remember all the parts of the ship now, but it had the ropes and
Yeah.
stuff, uh, and it was just. It was really about the aging to me, like the making the boards of the ship just look like they'd been beaten up by the sea
Yeah.
over and over again, and layers of paint. You know the way ships are, even if they're wooden and they're painted.
Rust and the paint
The
and
rust and the paint and the paint and paint and paint. Because when I was in art school, I actually worked refinishing wooden sailboats. That was a
oh
job I
wow.
had.
Oh
That's when I
wow.
first really fell in love with ships, and it was my girlfriend and I. And she later married the guy who ran the company and became a sailor herself. So you got to love ships, to get into that. But the amount of the thickness of the paint, the coats of paint that you have to put on these vessels to survive the ocean, I really wanted to get that across.
Isn't it
Um,
amazing in our world of how like, oh, I have a thing for boats. I'd always love to design one. And then you get this chance.
you
Like
get
it's
what I know. It's like,
crazy.
woohoo!
It's the best
Finally.
thing sometimes. Like you're like, oh my God, I'm working on this and I was been obsessed with this. It's amazing.
I was so excited to do that. It was such a passion. Really, I went to every ship I could possibly. The Cutty Sark in London, I went to. There's the the Glendale, I think it's called, in Glasgow. I would run
Oh.
off like when we were first scouting. I got to go see the ship. It's in the Transport Museum there. Even if though they weren't exactly the right period, it just helped me to be on the Blue Nose in Halifax, to be on all these ships, to really get a feel for, older ships.
And two, you're thinking of like story wise, like there's a whole crew on this ship, and we have to make it big enough for the crew. And has to, what size did they actually use back then? Like
Yeah,
the historical
it would
aspect.
actually it would have actually been much smaller. We did stretch
Oh,
it, but we needed it for cinematic reasons, really. Like, we just need all that action and stuff. You need that breadth, you need that
oh yeah,
distance.
I love
But
this.
the whole thing was built on a giant gimbal, which was another
I
layer
know
of,
the
yeah, we actually,
structural element and getting, getting real people on there, not just
yeah,
movie people. Like that's a lot
yeah.
to move the whole
So we
ship.
had, when we were drawing it, we had a whole metal subframe that the gimbal had to be designed to fit within, that we had to have an engineer, like any big set, but the engineer was really involved with that. Our, you
And
know,
safety.
outside sourced engineer, because it has, it becomes a safety thing.
Yeah. Because you've got actors on there and you've got crew
Yeah.
standing around
Yeah.
it. I mean, you gotta have
Yeah, it was
a
very,
safety meeting.
yeah, very big safety meetings and shooting very slowly. And we're also putting real ice on it, fake ice covered with real ice to make it look better. And so it's slippery, it moves. It's like the stairs up to the ship to get on the deck were these steep, horrid stairs at the back for the crew access. It was just like, it was insane. It was,
I must say the special effects and then the paint department and everyone who sculpted the ice and everything, it looks great because sometimes it's hard to get it realistic looking. And the snow and everything, and you were saying like creating icicles and everything, they're really talented and I don't know how many people it took to make those icicles, but
a lot.
they're really good. They're really
Yeah, they are excellent. And we actually sort of had to figure out a way to make them. So I had the guys, like our top sculptors, experimenting and doing one or two icicles, like trying to find the way to that them they could have a team of people working on them. Like like an icicle
Yeah.
factory.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, and the placement and everything, I mean, it's a discussions. It's a lot of discussion. Too much
Yeah,
ice.
we were also really lucky to have Jim Dine, who's a sailor and a guy who does rigging for movies. And if we didn't have him, I don't know, it wouldn't have turned out. He was the icing on the cake, all the ropes, the placement of things.
Oh,
Jim showed
wow.
up with a team of people from the UK. He's from the UK. And he just knew everything. And he brought all the, those block and tackle things and all the
Yeah.
ropes and then and then once everybody found out we had them, like the AD department, they actually had them do a boot camp with the extras
Oh,
so
oh
that
my God,
whatever they're
fantastic.
doing on the ship looks real, like giving
Yeah.
them real sailor activities, how you fold a rope, how what you'd be doing over here and over there.
Oh, that's
So that was kind of, I always thought that was really cool. Thank you, Jim
everybody
Dunn.
everybody learns something on a movie set.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
learning, you're
yeah.
constantly learning. The interior, which is so beautiful and so poignant in the story. Again, you've done the round window there, and
Mhm.
um,
Without even a conversation with Guillermo, it's so automatic. It's like, I know he's going to want a round window, so I'm just going to do one. He's
right.
like, yes, yes, in his
Do
Guillermo voice.
you prefer, or in working with him, the symmetry? Because there's a lot of symmetry in the sets, in overall
Yeah,
in the look
yeah,
of
yeah, definitely. I think
yeah,
as long as you take a break from it. So that's where I think, like Victor's apartment
yeah,
and certain other sets, there's a break from the symmetry, and you're not always doing that, beautiful,
yeah,
uh, symmetrical
for sure.
shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But the captain's quarters was very, yeah, it was very symmetrical. And, initially we had it dark wood, which wasn't really appropriate to the period. And I was kind of hinting that to Guillermo, they painted those interiors because they were so dark.
mm,
And the windows are so small and clouded and smoked over and stuff. And and he didn't really bite, but then I think one weekend he watched Mutiny on the Bounty
yes,
and maybe some other ship movies.
Brando.
And yeah, with Brando, with Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
And he came back the next day and he said, "Can we just try it with white?" And this is like when I say try it, we have a 3D model.
Mm,
And so it was pretty easy to go, okay, let's take the brown out, let's make it white and do a quick illustration. I have a fantastic team, work super fast. And it was great. And I was like, you know,
yeah,
I was so happy when we did that because then we could add, and it felt cold too. So
yeah.
it was brighter. It was easier for Dan to light, but it was still heavily aged, and it just the ice on the windows and all of that stuff just felt right.
Well, too, when the creature comes in there and then he's dark, moving
Yeah,
around it is really nice too. I mean, he'd
yeah,
be,
yeah.
in the shadows and everything. It's some really great scenes in this cabin. Some really
Hmm.
like makes you cry a little bit too. Like,
Supposed to make you cry. I
yeah,
cried when I saw the rough cut.
yeah.
Me and Kate Holly were like
Um,
super weeping.
you were just saying, so you 3D model the sets and
Yeah.
illustrate, and is that always your process? Are you always modeling and always, I mean, I'm sure at this point.
You know, I
Yeah,
uh yeah, pretty
yeah,
much
yeah.
everything now with my team. I work with the same people through the years, and it's just I think part of it is the process for the set designers to 3D model. They can really figure out the space before they do the construction drawings.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, I'm trying to think of, was there one set that we didn't 3D? I mean, some of the locations even we 3D modeled, honestly,
Yeah.
maybe in a very rudimentary way, but it's so helpful to make a plan when you have a 3D model.
And
We
communicate.
still also do foam core models, I should say. We do
Yeah,
both. Like just every trick of the trade to get people to really understand what the set's going to look like. Uh,
I
you know,
I love
and
models.
for the ship, we actually had a huge icing parking lot model with the iceberg, with the ice field in it, with a smaller ship model that was like maybe like this, to talk about the placement of cranes and things. And we had many meetings over that. Then we had a bigger model of the ship with some of the ice, and then we had a huge model of the ship just for the ship deck. So there were about three models of that ship, plus the interior foam core model. So I
I
always
love,
like to mix it up. Like, but if you have a practical model and you have a 3D model, you really can't miss.
yeah.
Um,
Well, in communicating with lighting and,
yeah, yeah,
and Guillermo and the director and everything and just making sure like we're all here.
yeah. And I don't like to really. I will not design something without thinking heavily about Dan and how he's lighting it, where it's coming from, and are there enough windows, and how will those windows affect, and is there room in the stage for his lighting? The lab was extremely tight for lighting, just enough, like within a foot of just enough space for him to light through all the windows, because he does use single source lighting from the windows, like very natural lighting.
Yeah.
So everything's lit from outside the set. There's not big
Yeah.
lights in our set,
That's so
that we have to
nice.
move around. Yeah, yeah, it really feels real, and it really frees up the
Yeah.
camera to move around. And the thing with Guillermo and Dan is, when you build a set, they're going to see every corner of it, like the ceiling, they're not afraid of low ceilings, like in the captain's quarters. Jacob Elordi, who plays the creature, like almost he
Yeah.
had to duck slightly under the beams, the lowest part. And Guillermo was like, I pointed out, and he's like, I don't care. It's real. It makes it feel real, and
Yeah.
let's make him duck. You know,
I know this is probably an effects thing. What did they make him taller? Or was
no,
there,
not really.
no, because there's some scenes he just seems like he's just really towering over
Yeah,
people.
that's
Like,
all camera angle.
yeah. Oh, it's
Like in the lab when he stands up over
yeah,
Victor,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
I think that they achieved that by high camera angle with the creature close and with a slightly wide lens. So it
Yeah.
just, makes the closer object bigger. It was
Yeah.
really good. It really, I
Oh,
was like, even I was like, wow, Jacob just grew a foot or two in
yeah,
that.
I mean, he's a tall dude. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
you have also versions of sets. You have, the tower explodes, and then you come
Hmm.
back, and it's, when he comes back there, and it's all full with snow and everything. In changing out these sets to see the beginnings to the ends, did you have a lot of time for this, or was it like, hey, tomorrow, exploded version? Like,
Mostly we had enough time. We really planned it. Like the actual big lab itself had like the unrenovated abandoned look, and then it had the renovate a small scene where they're renovating, and then then they're setting up, and then the creation scene, and then the destruction scene. So, the crew could only shoot there, shoot those scenes out, and then give us. We would tell the ADs we needed like
for the
5 days minimum to
yeah.
transform this into the next look. So there was a lot of that, and the same thing with the lab lobby that you're referring to. I sort of designed that knowing I designed the two looks simultaneously. And we built the walls, which maybe wasn't a great thing, but it's so hard to know at the time. We built the walls that are destroyed already, and visual effects healed the walls. They fixed the walls for the
Oh,
first
nice.
look,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was quite a ruin look already. And then when they came to do the snow look, the walls were already destroyed. They were already like not really there.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah.
Well, that's like genius to reverse it in that sense, so it's less
Yeah, I
less.
don't know. It might have been better to go the other way, but we talked and we decided together this is the way to go. Then, you don't know until you do it. But when we did it, we were like, oh, maybe it would have been better to go for VFX to take the walls away instead of us not having them in the first place. But we had a lot of walls, and
Yeah.
to me, when I'm designing with VFX in mind, and I do work closely with them, I try and accommodate it so they don't have to fix every shot. So when you're in tight, there's enough set there to cover an actor before they have to do any work, if you know what I mean. And it
Yeah.
was a lot of set there. I mean, the whole thing was a huge build.
Oh my gosh. The even the like basement or the lower level of the
Hmm.
tower where it's, the refrigerated room and then it's the holding cell for the creature. You have these somewhat lower vaulted rooms, and
Yeah.
I was blown away again in this behind the scenes how you created the vaults to move for
Yeah.
camera.
Yeah.
It's so genius.
Yeah, that was I didn't design that. The guys had to figure that out. We said this is where it has to break. This whole column has to come out. What do we do? And our Steve, our metal guy, actually built a machine that you slide out the one part
Yeah.
of the column and then you push the machine, and it was absolutely necessary. And Guillermo, we actually did a show and tell. I don't know if that's in the making of. I think it is. We showed Guillermo how fast because he was like, if
He
it
jumps
doesn't, if it
on.
takes more than 5 minutes, it's not working for me. Like it's got to be fast. And so we made this thing. That was my construction team were awesome
Oh
creating
my
that.
God. Really ingenious
And it
ways
was
to like,
so difficult, that whole Gothic vaulted ceiling thing with tile was just insane to build because we had to make the tiles
oh,
scenically and use real tile where there's water because, we couldn't afford to put tiles everywhere. So we made them. It was actually like a cost sort of thing, made them to match, but on the floor where there's the water runs through and the leaf and so on, that has to be real tile. And then getting the tile around the chute was insane because tile doesn't bend, doesn't do
no.
compound curves. But we managed. And that also, like the ship, was one of the things on my bucket list of things I wanted to design was a vaulted ceiling set.
I
So
feel like it's gorgeous.
Guillermo
It's gorgeous.
Guillermo was like, when I proposed that, I actually found he always wanted it tiled. He knew he wanted it tiled. It was below ground, was tiled, it had a chute. Those were things that were servicing the story. But I found it in Scotland. We didn't go there, but there was a location that was this tiled pool with vaulted tiles. And I was like, well, if they can do it, that's an actual building.
Yeah.
I can do it here. We can do it. So, but
Oh,
yeah, definitely. Nothing like a vaulted ceiling
It's
to
also
drive you crazy.
well, it's also great because you've made it all white, but it has such depth with the lighting and everything and the shafts of light coming down. It's so pretty, but it's like decaying around him and it's a sad little place for him. But um, was there ever talk of making it a color or just always having it white?
No, it was always white.
Always
I
white.
mean, and it's not any real white. What we did decide to do, Guillermo wanted moss. So we were talking about it earlier, this whole the texture of moss, and he wanted a moss squad. I was like, whatever that is. So we made a moss squad, which was sort of me and the greens, couple of greens people, and our scenic artists all made moss, and I thought, oh, gee, I'd really like to do this in the creature's cell. We called it his cell, his crypt. So I would go. I went and did one corner with our greens guys and our scenics, and we aged all this moss and placed moss, and took a picture and ran back to Guillermo, who was in another studio. And Guillermo, what do you think? He's like, yes. So between him and me, we went crazy for adding this sort of moss texture, which I thought was just
Yeah,
it made it so beautiful. And again, it's this idea of nature, creeping in always. And the creature, even though he's man-made, has this innate connectivity to nature.
yeah. And when he's discovering things out in the forest and everything, it's so genuine and so childlike.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah.
great. I don't think I have a picture of this, but the funnel that is, a
The
big,
vortex, yeah.
yeah,
The
big
shoot.
part of the story and
Yeah.
everything. Because I will admit, I have never read Mary Shelley's. Is that in the book? Is that
No,
no?
no, no,
That's
no.
the design of it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and kind of a genius way to exit, like an exit for a character. But I feel like
Yeah,
as soon as you see that funnel, something's going to happen, and that's quite
yeah, yeah.
dangerous for this
It was
point.
actually it was actually quite dangerous on set. I was
I'm
constantly
sure.
I mean, it doesn't, of course, like it only went down 6 feet on the big lab, or
Still,
maybe 8 feet, but you could still hurt yourself. And I was very scared always of somebody falling in. And, we had like cones around it and stuff. It was scary. And that was, yeah, but it did serve the story. And it also, that chute goes all the way up the tower. You can
yeah,
imagine going all the way up the tower to the top where Harlander and Victor are fighting, above which he has to connect the pinnacle of the tower where he has to connect the lightning rod. So all that rain that you see which that was a separate set, obviously, is pouring down into the lab, and Guillermo just really wanted to have it pouring in there, like it was. We had to use real tile because um,
it would have
the tile you couldn't fake tile there. It was just too wet.
been slippery, probably then.
And slippery and scary. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was like even with all the aging on it, it was a very treacherous set. Every time I was there with the crew, I was just like, oh my God, please don't anybody get hurt. Nobody got hurt, thankfully, knock on wood. But
How did
it
you
was a
come up
scary
with
set.
that thought that is that in research? How did you come up with that?
I think it was just Guillermo had wanted. He always wanted the shoot because that was how the action was going to happen. That
Mm.
the weather was going to get in, and there was always going to be this lightning rod that came extended down through the tower. Um, so even before I started, I think Guy had done some illustrations that were very different from what we ended up with. But Guy Davis, our concept artist, was working it through with Guillermo. Um, some kind of shoot thing that
Yeah.
that
'Cause
made
it's
sense
elegant.
in
It's
the
kind of
setting.
elegant too. I mean, it's a beautiful like funnel that,
We called it the giant toilet bowl
I
sometimes. But it
can
was
see that
elegant. It was.
too. I can see that too. I went a different
You
way,
know,
but that's okay.
the funny the funny thing about Mary Shelley's book, which of course I reread when I started, is there's no real moment of creation. There's no like it's just like
Oh,
the creature is an idea and then he's built the next day and and that scene where Guillermo had Victor in bed and the creature comes, that is actually in the book. But that whole building of the creature and the stitching them together and putting that you've seen in a million Frankenstein movies, that is not in Mary Shelley's book.
that's crazy.
I know.
Now I
I
want
was
to
reading the
know.
book and I kept looking for that scene and like I can't wait. What did she? what did she say about that scene? And there you go. It's not really.
Well, what
So,
I and him saying this is close to her book, and then being like, "Oh, I feel like an ass. I never read it." And then like I've seen like the other versions and everything, and then I started thinking about Young Frankenstein and thought, well, I think Young Frankenstein is pretty close. Like there's certain
it really
elements in
is.
there. The older man, the older
Yeah.
blind man, like and I was like, instead of the child, it's a deer, maybe. Like I was like, wow, they actually went closer, I think, then because then I watched the 1931 version, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was like, this isn't like it at all. This isn't
No.
like so, yeah, because it's Hollywood. We can do what we want.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so you said Victor's was one of your favorite sets.
I love the apparel. Yeah.
What
I mean, it was one of the first ones, and to me, it really set his character. And when Oscar Isaac walked into that set and went, "Oh my God, I get who I am." Like it's just like
oh,
such a thrill when an actor,
oh, it's such a compliment.
when you can see his character building, and such an amazing actor too.
I really like the house too, of like just showing the simplicity of how people were living, and still getting like great designs with these beams in there, and then the whole wheel works where he's hiding out for a while. I thought that was really, really a beautiful design too, and you built the whole house. I mean the
Yeah, we
he's
built
up on
the
the roof.
exterior. We actually built the exterior in the fall, and it sat over the winter. And
By
we
choice.
built it, we aged it, and it really actually helped that it set over the winter. We couldn't build it during the winter. It was just too cold for the guys to be out there. So we had the luxury of time, and so we built it in this, field outside of a little town studio,
Oh, it's
TV studio.
beautiful.
Um,
Did
and
people
of
go
course
and
all
check on
the
it? Like, did people go and
yeah,
check
we
on
go
like,
check on it, and it was
yeah,
like,
is the
oh,
roof
it's
still
looking,
up?
it's aging nicely. It's
Yeah.
getting and then you take pictures of it with snow, and you get snow on it. It was really cool. So that was kind of fun. And then the inside was in the stage,
Yeah, it's
and we double built the area around the door and the door into the sort of the wheel room where the creature was. All
yeah,
of that.
some beautiful, beautiful scenery. I know I have that big where Frankenstein's young, and that huge house that you have in the library and everything. I didn't get to that because I thought I'm gonna run out of time, which I am. But um the experience overall, like, do you find like, oh, well, let's do Frankenstein's bride? Like, let's
Oh,
you
no, I'm
know,
ready for something else. I'm
yeah.
ready for something different. Yeah, I've got Frankenstein is definitely out of my system after almost 2 years. But it was
Um,
like a great 2 years. Like it was inspiring. And I loved working with Kate Hawley, our costume designer. I had
I
not
was,
worked with her
yeah,
before. And
yeah,
we really were joined at the hip. At first, we were like sniffing each other out and how are we going to work together? Let's find a language. And then we found a language of the color palette and just working together, working with Guillermo. It was just great. It was really a
yeah.
rich experience working with her. And her costumes are so
The
outstanding.
costumes are phenomenal. I mean, and
Yeah,
all of the specific colors per character, and just the movement through the film with the
yeah,
costumes, really
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
The I don't have a picture to talk about, but is there a significance of mirrors in the film? And because he's hiding behind the mirror, or there's one shot where there's two mirror, like,
Yeah, like where Harlander reveals that he's behind a mirror and there's
yeah,
another. I mean, mirrors are just great to play with. And it's funny you mentioned because there's one in Harlander's bathroom where it's a three
yeah,
mirror,
yeah.
which I wasn't sure those existed at the time. And I said, Shane, can you see if you can find one of those? Because we had done that in Nightmare Alley.
Mm,
And it was actually a location that we were going to shoot in, and there was a mirror with these two side wings so that you can get an incredible shot of everybody in this
right.
mirror. And Guillermo loved that. And I remembered that. And so I asked Shane to find a period one that we could use. And he did in Harlander's bathroom. So I love to play with that idea of reflection. And I just know that Guillermo will gravitate towards it. Uh, if you put it there, he doesn't necessarily say, I want this, but if you offer it up, he's like, I want this. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like he's such a great collaborator that way. And the whole thing with in the bedroom set at the end of the wedding with the creature in the mirror and where Frankenstein is becoming the monster and the creature's more human than and they're all more human than him, and it's this reflection of the two characters together. A lot of that scene is played out in that big mirror, which then somebody's thrown into and it breaks.
Yeah.
That's very much Guillermo's way of working, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's such a great use because sometimes, people are afraid of it, like what are we reflecting and what about the lights and, things like that. So sometimes I've been told, can we get art instead? You know what I mean? And it's such a letdown. It's like, oh, I
See, that's the thing,
thought it was an
like,
opportunity. I thought, okay.
yeah, no, I've been there in the same thing. I was Guillermo embraces those things. He's not afraid to make it more difficult to film. So
Well, you and Shane make a phenomenal team. So
thank you.
congratulations on the film. It's definitely my favorite, I have to say. And
Good,
such a
glad to
pleasure
hear.
to meet you and speak with you about it. So thank you so much.
Well, let me know when you put this out.
Tuesday. I'm editing today.
Okay, I was listening to some of your.
Wasn't that divine? Wasn't that just beautiful to listen to? And you can watch it on Decorating Pages podcast YouTube channel. I must admit, I had so many slides on this that I feel like I got lost in my own slides and kind of didn't coordinate what we were talking about sometimes. But visually, it's such a magnificent film, and every shot just looks like a painting. It's just beautiful. So thank you so much, Tamara, for joining me. Again, you can watch this on Netflix. Please watch the making of. It's really great. But, try to see it in a theater. It's really good. So if you like this episode, please make sure to follow the podcast, leave a rating and review, and share it with other, dorks who would be into this. But even, hey, a production designer who might like these episodes, a decorator, a student, anyone who is into films, they might enjoy this one. So yeah, I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wana for Decorating Pages.